Okay, this is my third time to try and start back where I left off. Oh my God, what a day. Stella, some days, I don't even know. She's so dramatic. But when she came in, she wanted to come through, get up here on the chair. Then I said no. So she tried to climb over the side. Then she went around the couch, climbed over the couch, tried to come over this way. She wouldn't stop. She wouldn't stop. Finally, I moved, went over to the couch, started talking over there, she jumped over to the chair, got in the chair. And then as soon as I'm over there, well, then that's where she wants to be. So then she had to jump back over there. Then I was sitting, then she pushed herself behind me and pushed me way up. So I'm like way up at the camera. Then then when I just moved, now she's laying there, but who knows how long it'll take. Maybe she'll start snoring. Right now I know she knows I'm talking about her. She's so smart. She's so funny. Now she's like, oh no, I can get in that chair. I'll figure it out, Mom. I will come this way, that way, you can't stop me. When she wants something. It's so funny. And she's so big. I've been taking these pictures of her in my kitchen because I have a little cabin, and it's got other buildings, but the one is small. My kitchen's small, and when she goes into it, she like takes up the whole thing, and she'll be standing in there drinking. And I always think about that. I always think a big dog in a little house of that. What's his name? Farley, when he did the fat guy in a little boat. That's what I always think about. Okay, let me see if I can get back on track. Okay, so I think that there's a lot of people, and they think like, well, if I just would have done this, I would have had a totally different outcome in my life. If I just would have gone this direction, if I just would have chose this other job or this other kind of school or whatever. Everybody thinks like, well, when they come to a crossroads, well, maybe I picked the wrong one. Maybe that's what all these problems are. If I would have picked the other one, probably no problems at all. I would have just had the greatest life. I picked the wrong one. And I just don't believe that's how it works. I believe that you, no matter which way you're going to go, you're going to have obstacles. This one, maybe you got a flat tire. This one, maybe you got a fender bender. And this one, maybe you met a girl that was going to screw you over. And this one, maybe you met a guy that was going to screw you over. But the stories are going to be the same kind of thing, because the lessons that you are trying to learn are all going to have different ways of teaching these lessons. So whatever you're working on in your incarnation, then you are going to have those experiences are going to be coming to you because you want to learn, you want to get over that stuff. And especially if you're having repetitive patterns, like for me, just kept marrying the same person in different body. They all had the same kind of, I think a lot of alcoholics are kind of narcissistic. They are very, think about how the world's affecting them all the time. I think they have a harder time thinking about how they affect others. And they get very self-involved and stuff. Like trying to talk to them and stuff, it's always going to be about them, about what's going on with them. And it's always a lot of poor them, and life's harder for them. And I don't know, there's definitely commonalities in certain groups. Like I was talking to my one daughter yesterday, and I have two daughters that started drinking and did drugs, and then right away we're like, okay, I'm out of control. This is ridiculous. I can't do this. I gotta shut it down. And one did it a lot faster. The other one, it took more time, but she was going through a lot of stuff. And And I was telling her yesterday, there's a big difference in somebody who is an alcoholic who, within a few years goes like, oh, this life isn't for me. I'm going to choose a better life for myself. And one that is an alcoholic that has been an alcoholic for their 40, 50 years, maybe their whole life, maybe 60, 70, 80 years, there's a big difference in those kind of souls, but these souls that they will have something in common, and these souls will have something in common. I've had a lot of experiences with a lot of long-term alcoholics that have been, spent most of their lives drunk. And there's a reason why they go together, they group together, find each other in bars and stuff like that, because they feel better together, just like all of us. We feel better when we're around our tribes and stuff. And I was watching, I started this other movie today, but there's been a bunch of different ones that have kind of given me this messaging that kind of has a common thread in it, and all of the stereotyping in movies drives me crazy. And I think that gets us to not like people that we don't know, and it should all be on an individual. We shouldn't dislike groups of people. I mean, it's an individual. You should, and that's the thing about knowing your neighbor and stuff. Right now, that's difficult because people can know their neighbor and still they're so trapped in this MK Ultra mind-controlled brainwashing thing that they can't see realistically. It's all this programming playing all the time. So, but in real reality, it should be based on knowing your neighbor, and you shouldn't have to be pushed to love everybody in the whole wide world. That makes you progressive. That makes you, this different thing. That's not how I see things at all. Like the Amish, and they've stuck together. Different tribes, like, in Indians, like, I think on the reservations, I don't think that they just say, here, we're going to put every tribe in this one. I think that they have a few that are grouped, but even the tribes have their own places to be, and I think they still have the elders where, there's this elder of this tribe and this elder of this tribe and this elder of this tribe, and they have to meet and they have to talk and they have to come to agreements, and then, it brings in more of this stuff. And I think that we're going to get more to that kind of thing. That is something that has worked for different civilization groups throughout time before we got trapped into this system. I mean, the system has been going for a long time and, working towards this, but, now it's kind of like we're in the net. Some of us have flopped out of the net, and, we're trying to tell everybody else, get out, get out, get out while you can. But, you can't when they're all in this kind of brainwashed state. But so, like the Amish people, however they've structured their community, and say, a Cajun community that has, that is out in the, I don't want to say swamps, but out in the bayou. I mean, there's people who, they live, out in the Appalachians and stuff. There's people who live out in some areas across, I think across everywhere. I don't think it's just in America. I think that they're everywhere. I've heard about, in Australia, there's groups of people who stick with their own people, their own tribe or whatever, their own community. But anyway, so would we ever expect, like, oh, well, we should get the Cajuns and the Amish to come together? They need to, we got to blend these people. They've got to learn how to get along. Well, why? Why can't they just go build their communities, have their like-minded people, set their own priorities, have their whoever, if it's by elders, if it's by volunteer, if it's by voting, or however, you decide who the community leaders are, that it's the smaller communities. That's how we will, that's how we will become more successful. There was a different word, but I couldn't think of it. And so I think that is, in movies and stuff, they try and push us a lot into this other thing. And I guess maybe it's all part of like this globalist kind of way, that we all have to be melded together, but we all have to fit in the same kind of pattern. Like they want us all out of the same. If they were making Christmas cookies, it'd all be snowmen, and not everybody wants a snowman. And but it's just this agenda they're always pushing on us. And I think that it is more of stepping back from the programming and actually going and building what feels right, instead of going, flock towards people you align with. And that's one thing, like as this veil is being lifted and people are starting to see more clearly that it is, it's raising people's vibration, changing people's vibration, and it's bringing like-minded people together. And at first, a few years back when I was seeing it as like, if you took one of these round things, I don't know what you would call it, and it has different slots, and you put all these marbles and then you start shaking it, the marbles of the same color will go into together. And I think that is kind of like what is happening, that people are tending to find their own tribes. People have been talking about that for a while, finding their own tribes, finding their own group, finding their own community, finding their own like-minded people. And there's been so much of us with expecting us to all conform and to fit into these rules, these paradigms, these set rules by other people. And people are starting to, want to be around people that are more like them than to try and fit in to what someone else wants them to be. Because we all have people out there. We all have like-minded people. We all have a group, and I think one of the big problems has been for so long is how many people have been trying to change themselves to fit into the world, fit into what is expected. And but the more that they pull into themselves, the more that they don't align with that. They just want to find their people that are more like them. I know I talk about next door a lot, and they just are so, oh my gosh, sometimes I'm just like, what? It's so weird. Why did I get brought to this area? Other times I feel like, okay, I can see why I'm brought here. That it's a change in, me bringing this energy in is going to change things around me without them ever knowing. And I know there's a lot of communities like this, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who are considered light workers, starseeds, whatever, all these labels. I'm sure that there's a lot of people who have been set in these communities to raise the vibration and stuff. But when you're in them, oh my gosh, it would be one thing, if you could just go in and you could start talking, and that, you had people who wanted to listen, that wanted to have conversations, that wanted to look at things in a broader perspective and stuff. But you don't find that so much. Like, I look forward to whatever this shift that's coming, whatever is going to happen. To me, it's kind of going to be like this giant light switch is going to go on, and the programming's going to stop. And when the programming stops, you know, it's going to feel like an energetic wave when these people wake up to the fact they're all being programmed. When all of a sudden they see it is going, I think we're going to feel it. And I was talking about yesterday something that's interesting, because I know there's a lot of like, I'll hear this scientific talking about like the axis switching. We're going to flip the axis, and the equator is going to change and stuff. And I kept thinking, you know, well, that's super interesting. And I had been noticing the weather where I'm at, and I'm way up by Canada, over by the ocean on the west coast. And all summer I was just noticing like how it felt kind of more tropical. It reminded me a lot of being when I'm down in like Louisiana. I love Louisiana. But it felt like the weather felt like that here. And when I'm down there, I think all the time like it feels tropical. I mean, even the flowers and stuff. And so I was like, that's weird how it feels like that here. So I thought, well, maybe there is something to this, you know, the flipping of the axis thing, and or the poles, or however you want to say it. And then yesterday I was like, with this energetic surge it's going to be when the programming stops and the light bulb comes on in everybody's head at once, then and you know, we are in the you know, the Piscean age of duality, good and bad, all that stuff. So then when the flipping, if you think about it on a spiritual level, because right now we're in this phase where good is bad, bad is good, and everything is in the upside down. It's all confusion, which is weird how they did that whole show about that too, right? The what was it? I think there's like 3 seasons. It was that kids show, kind of like Goonies or something, on I think it was on Netflix. Can't remember the name of it. But anyways, it's kind of like that we are in the upside down. And but when, you know, in the age of Aquarius, and I don't know how it goes, like at the exact day, if you're still how it goes, because I've heard like, well, we're already in the age of Aquarius, or we're about to be in the age of Aquarius, like all this stuff. Like, I don't know, I'm not it's all based on the planets and how they align, and once they go through the whole, every possibility in the alignment, then it's a new cycle. And the cycle takes about 26,000 years from what I understand, and that's where we're at right now. And so so when it flips and it goes to what is good, and you know, when it flips over the other way, then I was like, oh, that energetically could feel like the whole planet just spun on its axis. You know, energetically it would be essentially kind of the same thing. It wouldn't necessarily change the weather patterns or something. I mean, it could. You know, I don't know. I think we're all just discovering exactly who and what we are. We're all doing it together. And that's why it's important for us to be able to share insights and to share our perspectives and stuff, because we're all trying to learn this together. We're all trying to understand. And we all have different perspectives. We're all seeing things differently. And I don't just mean on the weird reality thing. I mean just on how we see our purpose, how the planet is here, what the planet is. You know, some people see this as a hologram. Some people see this as a computer game. Some people see this as, I've heard so many different things. To me, it kind of, it feels to me kind of like it's a play. And we come in and we play this part, we play this role. And but my real self, who, you know, Kelly is only an aspect of my real self, is out there. and they're giving me guidance. And I think that's kind of like where you get the idea of the avatar in the video game, you know. And like in the Matrix, like there's a controller, which is so crazy because there is a controller that is much bigger than us, that is controlling this. Like if you put it on the sense of a game, right, that we are all in their game. So I'm not a gamer, so I don't know, Call of Duty, I hear that one all the time. So say for instance they've created Call of Duty, and we all in our incarnation, we go into that their game. They've created the game. That is what this is like right now. But when you step out of it, then you can see, oh, this is a game, you know, but it still leaves an endless amount of possibilities of what and who we are. It's just that we just have to wake up that we're in someone else's game. Then we start creating our own game. We start making our own world. And it's so hard because I can see the stuff. Like a lot of my stuff I think is in visions, stuff that I'm shown to me. And then plus they're always talking and stuff. So, but when you're trying to explain the things that they see, there is like a lot of limitations with language. I mean, language is fascinating on one sense, you know, especially like when I'll like find myself, even when you're tweeting, you know, how many, and I've heard of this before when people have come and tried to learn English in America, that how many words that we have that can be the same word, but it means totally different things. How many words that we have that are so similar and stuff. And what is also fascinating is that how many people, like you can find them, that go in and they look up and research different words and where they originated and what they were meant. And that gets really weird. Like, you know, television, this television, just stuff like that. I've heard so many of the different ones in the programs on TV or the programming of human beings. But there's a whole bunch. And so they've developed this language in this video game, this language that means that when the words were created, they meant a certain thing, but then in the upside down, they twisted the meaning and they made us use words that meant something different than what we thought they meant, if that makes any sense. I know it makes sense to some people, but some people will just be like, okay, I don't get it. But it will all start making sense. All of the stuff will start making sense, even if you sit and listen to me, you know, maybe you like to look at the plant, I don't know. But if you sit and you listen to me and you keep thinking like, okay, seems kind of wacky, it will all start making more sense. Sometimes the information comes to us and we're not really quite sure what to do with it or what it means, but then all of a sudden it makes so much sense, you know, a year later, 6 months later. Like I was just talking, my neighbor helped me move this new washer in, right? And we were talking because he had lived in Texas and I was born in Kansas and he lived in Kansas. He only moved to Texas for while he was in the Air Force or whatever he was, a Marine or something, in the military. But he was stationed in San Antonio, I think he said. And so he was there for a short time. I was born in Kansas, but I grew up in Dallas. So anyways, we're talking about Texas, and we both have that also, that can't, because I have a ton of relatives that were in Kansas still. For when I was real little, we'd still go back and visit and go to their farms, because they were all farmers. And so we would go back to the farms and stuff like that. But he was talking about that he was talking to a friend of his in Texas, and he was asking him, like, are you okay? Are y'all frozen and stuff? And the guy said, well, funny enough, when we were working together, or when we were stationed together, you were telling me about, oh, and he even had taken him to Kansas with him. And he had told him about what they do when it's real cold and stuff like that. And the guy remembered. And when all this stuff started happening in Texas, all of that stuff came back to him, what my neighbor had told him of how to stay warm, things you do, things that they did in Kansas and stuff like that. So he started doing them, and it helped him and his family. And talking to my neighbor, he was like, I don't even remember any of it. I don't remember telling him about it. I don't remember any of that stuff. So it's just, it's so crazy, because we're constantly planting seeds for each other. And that's the thing that I try and get across, like, you know, just passing someone in a store and holding the door open or not holding the door open, or in a restaurant, you know, standing up and letting someone, the effects that we have on people is far beyond than what we think. You know, we're usually thinking about ourselves and how we are being affected by what's going on around us. We don't sit there and just think about other people, how they're being affected. Sometimes I do. I'll tune into how other people are being affected by things. But generally, you know, most people are only thinking about themselves. And but you have an effect on all these different people. And the most simplest, most obscure thing can be planting a seed in you, and it will come back later. And I know that so many people have got to understand that experience. I've had that happen before, but I thought that was really cool that that guy gave him information years later that he needed, and it came to him. And, you know, he probably told other people, hey, you know, this is working for us, do this. And I think one of the things was to go down and put a light on your pipes in the basement. Keep them warm. There was something about that and stuff. To me, like, there's things like, you know, fill your bathtub, make sure you have drinking water. When my pipes froze, yeah, I went and put a lamp on the pipes. But, you know, I guess people who don't live in a place that freezes don't know to do that. When I moved up here, well, I mean, part of my life of having a husband, they do a lot of stuff that you don't find yourself doing. That's one of the things, too, I told my neighbor, is that I was moving something by myself that I thought, there's no way. I have a little guest house that I've been making out back, and it has a loft, and I had a futon bed up there first. And when somebody slept up there, they were like, oh, it's too horrible, it's uncomfortable. So I bought a new bed, but I had to get the futon down. And I'd asked somebody to help me, and I decided, well, I'm going to just try and do it by myself. And so I went out and I did it. I couldn't believe it. I got that futon down from that loft by myself and moved it part of the way. Like, I got it out the door. And I told him, I said, you know, when I was married, there was so many things that I never even, you know, you just didn't even challenge yourself. You didn't know, you didn't do it and stuff. But then when you aren't married, all of a sudden you find yourself doing things, you know, that are more challenging. Like, for some guys, you know, it could be cooking, you know, keeping up on their own laundry. You know, that was something that depended on someone else to do. But when you start doing it for yourself, you start seeing, like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Like a guy who didn't cook, depended on his wife, right? And then he goes and he's divorced and he's getting takeout and eating junk and stuff. And then it's like one of the days he's like, I'm going to cook something. I really want this. And then all of a sudden he discovers that I'm a good cook. And he starts, like, enjoying cooking, having dates, cooking for girls and stuff, you know. It's the parts of ourself that we can find when different things happen to us, instead of focusing on, like, oh my gosh, my life's over. And I'm never going to move on. I'm never going to have anyone else. I'm never going to, you know, you start finding parts of yourself. And mine, you know, was definitely strength, resilience, being able to, like, figure out how to make a deck by myself. There was a bunch of stuff. There's so much stuff that I did over this quarantine to this house. that I wouldn't have not known. And even with the freezing pipes, I would have depended on my husband to figure out what to do. I wouldn't have necessarily known, like, I need to put a light. But then when my pipe's frozen, someone taught me that. And so then when they froze the next time, I just went and put a light bulb on them. And we don't put a light bulb right on them. You put a light bulb close and it heats it up. But I was thinking, I wonder, how many people in Texas who are freezing and stuff, if they know, just turn on all your lights and take the shades off. That's one thing too with the old light bulbs. The old light bulbs, you could heat your house. Go down to the dollar store, buy a bunch of the old light bulbs, put them in all your lamps, turn those on, and your house will get warmer. And like I've been saying, I've been sitting on this heating pad, and it really does warm me up. It's like a seat warmer in your car when you go out in winter, and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so cold. And then you put your seat warmer on, and it's like, oh, this is comfortable. And that's what this is like. But I was thinking, I wonder, this is their first time of having to experience this freeze, and they're all in this panic, and nobody knows what to do. And there's simple things like that they could do. And I'm sure that people are there learning different techniques in order to stay warm. There's a lot of stuff when you are go through something. There's so much stuff that you learn from that experience, so much stuff about yourself that you learn. And that's why we should embrace our experiences. We shouldn't be trying to hide from them, trying to think that they are the problem, that going through these things are, makes life too hard or something. It is, I think it's all in our perspective of how we're looking at it, because I think the more that we embrace what's coming our way and know that it's meant to come our way, it's meant to be, like when I was talking about doing these things, it is almost like you are stepping into your future. You are taking the next step to whatever is the next thing that's going to be. And it's unknown. You don't know where that's headed. You don't know what's going to happen on the other side, but you have to step into it. You have to own it. You have to be ready for the challenge, be ready for the experience, and know that it's all going to be fine, because all the experiences are all leading to the same place. You're born and you die. You're all going the same place. But, and to me, that's like, enter stage right, exit stage left. That it is all, it's just the experience. It's while you're on the stage, it's what you are, but you're creating. It's kind of like, it's all improv. You're creating it. You're creating who you are. You're putting out there. And we all have to give each other the opportunity for redemption. That's part of this whole thing, The more you can redeem yourself in life, the less that you have to carry with you in death, I think. Because I think that is probably one of the most frustrating things that I can imagine. Is you're alive, you're doing your thing, you're going and living your life. You are, we all treat people bad sometimes. There's just nothing we can do about that. And it doesn't even have to be your intention that you purposely were hurting somebody. They could just be having a bad day, and whatever you do or say that you have no idea just made their day way worse. So all of the there's no way that you are, the perfect person who you want to believe you are. But so when you go through your life and then you die, and then you have this life review. One of the things, I read a lot of books before, and my stomach's growling so loud, about people who had near-death experiences, people that died and came back and stuff. And I've had those weird experiences, like come out of my body all of a sudden, you know, I'm watching myself from another perspective. I'm not in my body, like weird stuff like that. So I already knew that I was me outside of my body, but I'm still just a part of me. But so anyways, when, okay, wait a second. Okay, so anyways, I got to get my thought back, what I was talking about. So when you are, so when you die and you go through your life review, because that seems to be everybody who, in those people who have those experiences, I think there's some that go straight into, you know, they're in just having contact with other beings, other spirits and stuff like that, and they get sent directly back. But that wasn't, you know, their actual death time. It was like an intersection with another realm to kind of remind them or get them steered in the right direction or something, because it's a very profound experience for all these people. So many people write about it and stuff once it happens. A lot of people kind of hide from it because people think they're crazy, because, I mean, that's how weird it is. That people think if somebody dies and comes back that they had an experience, that's crazy. But anyway, so when you go and you actually do die, and then you see your life review, you have to go through the experience, how you affected other people, what you have to watch it and see from their perspective. You got to see how you actually affected the people. You have to feel how you affected them. And to me, that seems frustrating, because you can't fix it. Then you can't go back in and fix it. You don't have a replay. So you have to, you know, be born. You have to come back in, try and change that, or come back in so you can learn or whatever. But that's why I think that the more in life, the more introspective, the more you acknowledge others' experiences and stuff, then the less that you carry over to that. So we should be able to redeem ourselves as much as possible here, so we don't have to carry that energy on with us. It's not, I mean, to me, it just is a very frustrating energy. You can't do anything about it at that point. You can't go back in and unhurt someone's feelings. And you can't go back in and change how you're going to spend your time. You know, the only thing you can do is just try and redeem those when you realize them. If you see yourself in this life, and, you know, one thing I was talking about too with my other daughter, and this I think could be maybe helpful for some people, is, you know, if you're having a lot of relationships where you are like, okay, all these people are the problem. They're the problem, they're the problem, they're the problem. And I don't have any good friends. I don't have any good family. I don't have anybody good in my life. Everybody's a problem. You gotta take time to look at yourself. You have to look at your own way that you are presenting yourself to them. And, you know, that's how you're gonna create change, is taking responsibility. You can't play a victim. You have to take responsibility. You have to look at yourself. You have to see what is your part. Just like I was saying yesterday, that, you know, in relationships, there's parts. There's two parts. You're not just playing the victim. You can label yourself a victim. You can call yourself a victim. You can run around and whine and cry to everybody. Poor you. You're a victim. Everyone, you know, you have a shitty husband. He's mean to you. All that stuff. But that is, you know, that's kind of a cop-out. You have to go in and say, okay, how do I have these repeating things happen? And, you know, and if I'm feeling like a victim, what is it that I feel victimized by? What is it that I can change? How can I empower myself? You know, and it's not just by putting stickers around. I think that's good to have those stickers, but like I've said before, you can't just sit there and be someone's doormat and then go in and read an affirmation to tell you it's all going to be okay. You have to empower yourself. You have to claim, I'm not a victim. I'm playing a part in this. I'm expecting this person to fill this need for me. I'm having demands of somebody else that they can't complete. I have, my expectations, but I'm not saying like that your expectations, you should set your standards lower. You shouldn't have expectations. I'm not saying that, but you also, you can't expect, the person who comes in a wheelchair to get up and do a relay for you. You have to be realistic, and if this person isn't gonna meet your expectations or be, is at your standard of how you feel about yourself, then you gotta cut the ties, cut it loose, and be vulnerable. Go out on another journey. Go out and find yourself. Find people who are more like you. But there's so many people who get caught in these patterns of, this person's going to make me feel better. But then they both get in these things, and there are these unwritten kind of rules between each other. And it's like, well, if you don't say anything to me about this, I won't say anything to you about that. And it isn't to promote your best self. It isn't to promote growth. It isn't to promote positive things in your life. It's to kind of give up and just, like, I'll just do this. I'll just, I can't expect better. I can't hope for more. This is just, this is where I'm at. This is what God gave me, this shitty existence. And there's a lot of people who can't get out of their shitty existence. Like, little kid born in Africa, in a place of famine and stuff, that's out of his control. There's only so much he can do to, lift up that whole, that's a lot to try and carry, but, you're born into that, and then it is about making the best of it in some situations, like still figuring out how to make yourself blossom and bloom and be your best self. In an instance like that, maybe his is to always go in and help the elderly. Like maybe he goes in and picks things up for him or reads things for him or whatever. I don't even know if school is a thing in some of those places. And that's the thing, is that we expect things are like what we are living, and there's so many people living completely different lives, just like the Amish and the people in the Bayou, the people in the Appalachians, the people in Africa. There's different groups that are living completely different lives from one another in totally different cultures, totally different everything, traditions, beliefs, everything. And I love that when you get to some of those like older communities and stuff, that they do talk about the beings out in the woods and the beings in the swamps and stuff. There just seems to be something that is more spiritually connected, even though that they are thought to be, uncivilized. They're made into caricatures on shows, and we should never strive to be that way. We should always, we should just want to work all the time, take an antidepressant to make yourself feel better, make as much money as possible, throw it up in everyone's face, and, just strive to be successful, spend as much as possible on your clothes. Although there's people who are trapped as slaves in these buildings that have to sit there and sew all day long. They don't even get a break. Some of those people, they're beaten they're not allowed to go to the bathroom. They have to just go to the bathroom at their seat and stuff. Like, that's other cultures. That's where some other people are living, and then we're sitting here, like, we have no awareness of what these people are going through to bring this stuff. And especially when it stopped being, made in America, and probably every place. But since I'm America, I can talk about America. And it started being made in all these other places. But all those other places were using, they didn't have the rules. They didn't have laws about how many hours you can work, if you should get breaks. None of those things apply to those places. That's why they pay them so much less. And but those people are treated really bad. So then we're participating in these people's lives being terrorized. There was one, I think it was in India. It was a few years back, and it was a sweatshop. It was all just floors and floors of just women in there. And I think they'd have to stay there. I think some of these, I've heard stories where, they go to sleep for a couple hours to get up, and then they just have to go back to working. I think that if they get to leave the building, it's not like each day they get to go home. It's not like that. But this one, so they had this whole building full of all these people, and the building was so dilapidated, it collapsed. And I don't know if it was an earthquake or if the building just collapsed. And once it started collapsing, and just all went, and a bunch of these people were killed. But that's the work conditions that are in these places that they are making. They take it away from us, our jobs, put them over there so they can make money. But then they just make these people slaves, and then we're over here and we don't have jobs. So I don't know, it's such a corrupt system that they've developed, in this Call of Duty video game. Before I started, I was like, okay, I'm going to just stay on track. I'm not going to go off on my side things so I can, but I think that's just part of who I am. I just can't help it because I have no idea what I was talking about before. Now, what was it? Well, anyways, I need to be stopping anyways because I'm just get on my little rambles. It is kind of like being on a soapbox. It is kind of, I don't know, I hope I don't come across as preachy. I feel like it is more about us just all sharing how we see things and stuff. And even if we don't all agree, it's still, just like that guy, he didn't have any idea about if that stuff was going to save him later, about what to do in freezing temperatures. And there's just a lot of different information that it may not seem relevant to your life at the time, but it comes back around somehow and makes sense at other times. And that's the significance of planting seeds. I think it's always fascinating when you do plant one and then you get to see it blossom. You get to see it, whatever, months later, all of a sudden when it sparks on. But anyways, basically, I think that people are going to naturally gravitate more to people that they align with. I think that we're going to move away from this, one size fits all, and we're not going to be this corporate based industry anymore. It's going to be a lot more individual kind of, like I said about the farms and stuff. There's going to be a lot more smaller farms, a lot more co-op, a lot more made locally products. I think we're going to move more into our communities, supporting our communities and building our communities. And then when we do want to go and travel, it is going for the experience of that other culture, going for, we don't need everyone to be the same. We need to be able to go and have other experiences and see. I mean, this planet's huge, and there's lots of different people having different experiences and different cultures and stuff, and that we need to embrace that, not try and all be the same. We need to have the opportunities to go and learn from all different people and to understand the different experiences. I mean, and maybe, you know, maybe that's one that you will feel that more aligns with you, and you find yourself like, you know, there's lots of times where I think, oh, I really would love to move to Portugal. Love Portugal. Oh my gosh, I love Portugal. When we went to Porto, oh my gosh, I just loved it. I just loved the whole, you know, you go to certain places and they just have an energy about them. And I liked the energy of that town. It was a lot more of people sleeping more late. They get up, you know, go take time and sit and drink your coffee and talk with people. It's a, it kind of reminds me of a beach kind of way that they live, you know, like a Jamaica or something. I think a lot of people, a lot of different communities have this same kind of way, but and then you know, some people like siestas and stuff like that, but then people there, they go out to dinner at like 10 o'clock at night. Through the day, I don't know if it's just about working and resting, but it's more broken up differently. And then they go out much later, but then they stay out late and they aren't rushed through their dinner, you know. They aren't rushed like, oh, hurry up and move, someone else is waiting on your table. People go and they sit, and, you know, I don't know if there's, you know, some I'm sure drinking coffee, some are drinking wines, you know, but they'll sit there and socialize. And like when we were there, I think I've talked about this before, but who knows. But on the river, you go down there and there's all these restaurants that are facing out towards the river, and then the river walk is got all these people on it, but it's got like performance artists and, you know, people singing and stuff like that. And it's just this coolest energy. It's just as so much like people just enjoying their life and socializing and not having I don't know, it's like if it's not having expectation or not feeling like they have to be doing something, just it feels different. And I really love it there. That's one place where I'd love to have a little apartment on the beach there, be able to go sometimes. I want to have several houses all around the place. I don't want to just have one place. I want to have a bunch of places to go. Like, I think it would be cool to have you know, a lot of different people, kind of like the same thing with how an Airbnb worked. But you have like your community of people that you work with or you meet or however, because it would be international. So it wouldn't be like you would be meeting in a meeting place, but you all have the same idea of sharing your homes for people who are traveling. So you put yourself into that, I don't know, could be a catalog or something, depends on how big it was. But then all the people who want to do the same thing, travel around and go and experience and see the world, that they have all opened their houses to each other. So you have places to go and stay and stuff. You don't have to go and try and find hotels and all that. That we all just share our homes with one another. I think that would be such a good way to be able to see the world and to meet all these different people. And I am hoping for something like that in the future. Like for the past year, that's been on my mind a lot. Like getting my house ready for it to be, you know, it was always a vacation home. I don't even know how many hours anyone ever lived in this house for 25 years. I think it had only been, you know, very little. All the appliances were super old and stuff, but nothing was very used, just old. And so making this into a home where I could be here year round, but then also trying to make it into like an Airbnb or something for so I can travel around, but then it's not just left here unoccupied all the time. You know what I mean? So anyways, hopefully that makes sense. Makes sense to me. But okay, I just ramble. There was more things too that I wanted to say. There's a bunch of stuff, and I'm sure it'll just keep coming to me all day. Sometimes the stuff will keep coming to me, and I'll be like, oh, I should just go back in and do another one and say that. And then sometimes I'll write it down. But I just got to go with whatever things are being shown to me right at that moment. If I'm going blank on something, I'm not supposed to talk about it right now, I guess. So, okay. Have a great day, and I'm sure I'll be talking at you again tomorrow. See you later.